start recording. So good morning. Thank you for signing in. So the 7311 and the 7321 is the same module, and you will be writing the same exam. So I will be going through, even though it says 7321, it is 7311 as well. The exam is Monday, Tuesday. Let me just check. 27th is on. 27th is on. Let me just have a look. It is on Tuesday, is it? Yes, it is. Yes, it is Tuesday. So it will be on campus. It will be closed book, learning units 1 to 7. You wrote the exam last year in June, correct?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. And how did you find the exam last year? How was it? Quite a tough exam?
Yeah, it was a lot of work. It was quite tough.
Okay, but you prepared for that this time around. So you have a clear understanding what is required, and they have to put into this year into this particular exam. So this particular exam is structured very, very differently than any of the other exams before it. So it's in a form of, but I will go through that shortly. So it's all of the learning units. Let me just see my reception. It's showing that my reception isn't great. And how is it your side? Can you hear me still okay, clearly?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. It's just I've got a notification on here. I see Sikelela has also joined us. Hi there, Sikelela. So how do you prepare for this exam? It is, you have to do the work. You have to go through all of the learning, to go through it methodically. If you started, you most probably have started already working through it, going through the summaries, making summaries of all the, and the only real thing I can speak to you is to go through it in a methodical way. So you start off with learning unit 1. Learning unit 1 consists of every learning unit, or every chapter has sort of I call them greatest hits. And if you go through the chapter, you can almost pick them up. You can see, okay, one is all about understanding strategy, and the nature of strategy, and then the role of strategic management, or the concept of strategic management, and the 3 real questions that strategic management answers. So strategic management, so think of strategic management as the management of strategy. How do you go about putting a strategy together? Where is strategy, actual thing, a low-cost strategy, a growth strategy? Those are the actual things, your innovation strategy, whereas strategic management is the process of developing your strategy. And strategic management aims to answer 3 questions. Where are we right now? Where do we want to go to? And how do we get there? 3 simple questions. Where are we right now? So those are your analysis, macro analysis, industry analysis, understanding your internal strengths and weaknesses, understanding your resource capabilities that you have. And then tools that you to analyze that, and that is your competitive intelligence, that is your business intelligence. So those are the tools which you use to analyze your environment in which you operate in. So that is the where are we right now. Where do we want to go to is your strategic direction. That is chapter 3. Strategic anchored by strategic intent versus strategic link. And how do we express our strategic direction? We express our strategic direction through our vision statement, through our mission statement, through our organizational values and culture. And then in the process of formulating our strategy, we have to be mindful of this concept of sustainability, and that is chapter 2. This concept that our strategy is not just about running a business for profit, but it's also about our social responsibility and our environmental integrity and the carbon footprint that we leave behind. So that's your strategic management. It answers three questions. Where are we right now? Where do we want to go to? And then how do we get there? The how do we get there is the second semester answers those questions in your business level strategies, in your corporate level strategies, in your innovation strategies, in your strategies for sort of global expansion, in your strategic leadership, in how you're going to execute those strategies, and in your strategic organizational strategic execution, which is your learning unit 7, which is chapter 11. Which is strategic execution, organizational alignment. So think of strategic management as the management of strategy, and it aims to answer three questions. And your entire course, first semester and second semester, is based around those three questions. So as you go through learning unit 1, 2, and 3, 4, a pause, 5, 6, and 7, think of those three questions constantly. 1, 2, and 3 is about understanding strategy, strategic sustainability, and then strategic direction. 4 is the tools that you use to analyze the environment, macro, industry, internal. So as you go through those 7 learning units, those 7 chapters, the first 7 chapters of the textbook, you get a sense of the how the course, the entire course, which is not just the first semester but the second semester, how it is scaffolded, how it all sort of links together, and how it interweaves with each other. How do you study for the exam? Go through each chapter and go through as what I call the greatest hits. Chapter 1, and I can call them out for you. And it's when you go through the chapter, you'll see it. Chapter 1 is about understanding strategy, understanding strategic management, the 2 perspectives of managing strategically, which is inside out and outside in. The approaches to strategy, which is Mintzberg's 5 Ps, the test of a winning strategy, and then the 5 paradoxes. If you go through chapter 2, then you'll see the greatest hits. They sort of just and if you go through past papers, you'll see them coming up again and again. Understanding sustainability, understanding inclusive business, understanding the social ecological on the context strategy, shared value, embedding context into strategy. If you go to chapter 3 is all about strategic intent versus strategic, and how does your strategy find its expression? How do you communicate your strategy to the outside world? You communicate your strategy both internally and externally through the vision statement, through the mission statement, through value statements. What makes a good vision statement? What are the 6 questions that you have to answer which makes up a good mission statement? What underpins value statements? If you go to chapter 4, these are the tools. There's 3 sets of tools. There is CI, which is competitive intelligence, BI, which is business intelligence, and then the sort of things like cloud computing, things like big data that you've got access to, the Internet of all things. Understanding how people, those 3 things are combined to support strategic decision making. People, process, and technology. Who is responsible for managing knowledge in the organization? Your chief intelligence officer. What are the sources of competitive intelligence? What are the sources of business intelligence? Where do you get this information from? And how do you translate that information into knowledge, data, into information managerial wisdom or into decision making? Which are the environments in which you go and collect that information? Where do you find that information? Externally, you find it in the macro environment. You look at PESTEL. But beyond PESTEL, and this is important when you're doing a PESTEL analysis, it's not just about understanding the PESTEL factors. So a PESTEL factor would be, or part of the PESTEL factors would be all economic factors. But within that, there's a specific thing that drives the business or that impacts the business greater than others. If you're a retailer or if you're a bank, then what are some of the economic factors that are driving that has the greatest amount of impact on you at the moment? It would be interest rates. How does interest rates impact your business? It impacts my business by increasing the repayments on bonds and on credit. How does that impact your business? Positively, I make more money. Negatively, less people are paying and less people are taking out credit. So what am I doing about it? So that is the process of analyzing the environment. It's not just about saying economic factors. It's not just about listing them. It's about understanding the impact that it has on the business. When you're looking at industry factors, what makes the industry, how do you define the industry? What are and we use the 5 forces framework to understand the impact that the business has on the and the industry has on the business. We look at things like industry life cycle. We look at the structure of different industries. But most importantly, we use the 5 forces framework to better understand the business's impact on the industry and the industry's impact on the business. And then finally, when we look at the internal analysis, we look at resources and we look at capabilities. And here we use the resource-based view as a framework to better understand that. Resources are things that we have. Capabilities are the things that we do. We use the value chain model, which is also a Porter framework, to analyze the organization and understand its strengths and weaknesses, and ultimately how it is going to compete. When you work through all of these elements, when you work through all of these chapters, you'll see there are almost this golden thread that goes through all of it. And part of thinking strategically, the skill of thinking strategically, is the ability to hover at sort of 10,000 feet and look down at the organization within its environment, within its macro environment, and be able to see how it responds and where the opportunities lie, where the threats lie, what the organization's strengths are, and what its weaknesses is. And you can use these chapters and see, okay, so this is how it all fits together. This is how the business fits together. This is how understanding strategy fits into sustainability, fits into strategic direction, the tools that we use to analyze the macro of the industry and the internal environment. Any questions on that? Sort of that overview of where and how the 7 chapters fits together. Any questions at this point? Thank you, Leo. Sikalela? Anything on your side? I saw that you were struggling to connect a bit. So let's have a look at the exam brief. Now, the exam is in a format which is not like any format that you've seen before. So one singular report. You were expected to write one report in an essay format with an introduction, conclusion, and this is super important. with a clear introduction and a clear conclusion, answering a range of questions. All the questions will be based on the case provided, and you're required to apply and substantiate your answers with evidence from the case study or the context provided by the case study. Sikelela, yes, I was, okay. When I was talking about the golden thread, I was talking about how all of the chapters sort of fit together. So if you understand the idea, or the course is called strategic management. Strategic management aims to answer 3 questions, and that's the golden thread. And those 3 questions is, where are we? Where do we want to go? And how do we get there? Both semesters, all 14 chapters, all 13 chapters answers those 3 questions. And that's the goal. Okay, I see Zikalela has left us again. So one report, which is in an essay format. So it is a lot of writing. Unlike get a question and then it's 10 marks, another question for 15 marks, another. Here, this one is going to be, think of it as one report, one essay that consists of most probably about 6 to 7 or 8 questions. Now, what makes it different and what makes it challenging is that, or 6 case studies. And the expectation is, because we're providing you with this for the time, the expectation is that you understand those case studies, not just understand those case studies, but you do a bit of reading around the case study and fully grasp what the case study entails, the company that it deals with, the industry context, the macro environmental context. You also have a look at that business's sustainability, its inclusive business and that industry, things like their approaches to strategy and so forth. So all of those things, you look at resources, you look at capabilities. So all of those things are expected of you to be done before you go to the exam. So when you sit down in exam, you'll get a case study and you'll get 7 to 8 questions on that case study in a form of report. And the way you'll start off is this report, you write introduction. This report is on Pick and Pay in order to answer the issues around, or to answer the inclusive business practices, the way they approach strategy, their strategic direction, the tools that you use in order to analyze the business environment, the macro context in which they find themselves in, the industry forces that act upon it, as well as the resource capabilities that gives them a competitive advantage market. Now that's a very generic introduction, but if you think about that, that introduction covers all 7 chapters, and you will get questions on all 7 chapters. If you look at, so Gio, do you have any questions regarding that? Because if you look at previous questions, if you look at previous sort of exam, this format that you've had before. So any questions on that, just so that I'm clear, or that you're clear in terms of what the expectation is going to be? Just maybe just type in, or maybe. Okay, good. And you have got a copy of the exam brief. You've seen these case studies, yes?
So,
Okay, excellent. Yes.
I wanted to ask, with regards to the report, so with the introduction, do we then state the first learning units when we introducing the topic within the case study?
There will be questions relating to the case study. So, for instance, you will get, say, for instance, just an example, you might get MTN. So the first question might be, and this is maybe out of a previous exam, the first question might be things like, based on the case study above, explain, using Mintzberg's 5 Ps, explain MTN's approach to strategy. And then the next question might be, based on the case study, evaluate approach to inclusive business or sustainability. Rewrite a mission statement for MTN, and it sort of goes into questions. What are some of the competitor intelligence sources that MTN will draw on in order to analyze the industry? What are some of the big major macro environmental factors that impact MTN? You might get another question: the industry, MTN's industry that it operates in. Do a 5 forces analysis of its key competitors. And then finally, what are some of the resources and capabilities that, or explain a resource that MTN has and explain why it is a valuable resource. So now you've got 7 questions about MTN, about the case study. Now the case study that you have as part of the exam brief is a very short case study. But if you've done a bit of work around MTN, around the telecommunications industry, not just within Africa, but sort of within Africa, and you just did a bit of research, just did a bit of work around it, you made a couple of notes, you'll be able to answer some of those questions in a report format fairly quickly, fairly easily. Again, fairly easily, because if you know the theory, you'll be able to your answers. And then your introduction would read something like, this report aims to give insight on MTN's approach to their strategy, critically evaluate practices, look at the mission statement by asking the 6 key questions that the mission statement should answer. Furthermore, the introduction consider sources of competitive intelligence that MTN would use to analyze the external environment. Some of the major macro factors that would impact MTN would things like the economic environment, social and technological, and this report aims to evaluate its impact on MTN. It will then continue looking at the industry which MTN impacts using the 5 forces model, and the report will conclude with evaluation of the resources, available resources within the context of MTN and the industry that it operates in. Now, I've just made that up. I made up 6 questions based on my understanding of some of the questions that has been asked in the past, and I've made up an introduction. So that is what and your conclusion, because that's substantial. That tells me that you have a clear, because you get the question, what the questions are. So you'll be handed those questions. You then have to sit with your and write in 5 minutes a structure of what your essay will look like. So you'll say introduction, and then you'll have another subtitle reading Mintzberg's 5 Ps. Then you'll have another subtitle reading inclusive business. Then you'll have another subtitle reading sort of mission statement. Another subtitle, role of key intelligence topics. Then you'll have another subtitle reading economic impact on MTN. Another one, Porter's 5 forces. Another one, valuable resources. And then you'll have a conclusion. So you'll have to do all of that in about 5 to 10 minutes start writing. And that you can't just sit down and just start writing. You have to planning. You have to sit down and actually do the report on a piece of paper, and you can ask for an extra book, or you can write on the last page. And Gio, this is important for anybody that's listening to this recording. Make use of clear subtitles to structure your report. It will help with the marking. It will help with clarifying your thoughts and clarifying your ideas. And it will give you a clear idea of what needs to go under each section. Does that make sense, Gio? And start each subsection on a new page, So you write introduction, and then you start a section, and then you turn the page, and then you start another section, and then you turn the page, and you start another section, and you leave 2 pages open for each section, and then you ask for another book, and you write in another section, and then towards the end of that second book, you write your conclusion. Now your report is structured. Now you start filling in the gaps. Okay, so that section deals with MINTWORK 5 Ps. What is MINTWORK 5 Ps? Okay, it's plan, it is perspective, it is this and this and this. Okay, let me write. And now you go, okay, inclusive business, I'll leave that just for now. Let me jump onto Porter's 5 forces and write that a little bit first. And then I go to macro, and then I go to valuable resource, then I come back to missions, and then I go to sustainability. And then I finish off with my competitive intelligence or key competitive intelligence topics, or the role that the CIO plays in organization, or BI, or big data, or etc., etc. So what that does, it allows you to fill in the gaps to your report. I don't need a page empty in between sections, or half a page empty in between sections, as long as you have clear subtitles. So you'll have 1 for introduction, 2 for the first question, or 1 for the first question, 2 for the second question, and so forth. And you write that question. You don't write the question, you write the essence of the question, MINTWORK 5 Ps, key intelligence topics, etc. And you underline it. And you give yourself two, and you go, okay, I know this is only 10 marks, so 10 marks would be about a page and a bit. Okay, this is 20 marks. I'll give myself 3 pages to write. So then I go on to the next, and I give myself 3 pages. Okay, then I go to the next section. Okay, this is 15 marks. Okay, I'll give myself 2 pages. Okay, this is 30 marks. That's a lot. But think about it. So some chapters will have 10 marks out of it. Some chapters will have 20 marks out of it. Some chapters will have 15 marks out of it. But you will get a question out of each chapter. Now, this is where it gets challenging. What do you study in every chapter? My only answer is I can't tell you to only study parts of the chapter. But in the same breath, when I say everything, I also encourage you to look at past papers and look at the type of questions that get asked out of every paper. That will give you the clue as to the type of questions that you will get. So that's the question. Now the most important part of it is the application. So now you get a question of MINTWORK's 5 Ps, but how do you apply it to the MTN? Or how do you apply it to Seattle Coffee Shop? How do you apply it to African Districts? How do you apply it to Pick and Pay? Now this is the important part, because this is the mark. Because if you look at how the questions are going to be marked, and this is super important, and you have to, because they've actually included a rubric for you, and this is great. This is like the best. This is where the clue lies. Not just the clue, but this is where, if you look at it carefully, this is where it lies. So don't look at the mark allocation, but look at the percentages of each portion. So it says substantiation of points, synthesis of argument, and then structure of the report. You just look at those 7 marks. Now already you're looking at at close to 22 marks just on that section. That is just on the structure, how you lay out your report, how you argue your points, and how you substantiate your points, your statements that you make. Each question will consist of some form of theory. So that's the theory out of the textbook. But the other part of that theory is about the application. And this is important. It's good enough to know Mintzberg's 5 and write what Mintzberg's 5 P's is, but knowing that the perspective MTN's approach is to strategy. Or understand paradox is not just good enough knowing the paradox, knowing the that impacts MTN the most, or how it impacts MTN. Zikalela, you got a question? Go for it. Sorry, Zikalela, we can't hear you. Do you want to try typing it? All right. While Zikalela is busy with that, Gio, any questions on your side? This is about it. This is about all advice I can offer you. You must know the theory. You can't get past that. You have to go through past papers. That's important. You need to be able to apply that theoretical concepts to the actual case study. The advice about the case, read the case studies as they are presented to you in here. It's about doing a bit of extra work outside of that. Joe, you can find past papers on your student portal. Do you still have access to Vega student portal? Okay, have a look, and if you don't have, please let me know. This is my number, 55456. Please WhatsApp me if you're struggling with finding past papers. If you have a question between now and Friday, not on Monday, please, but between now and Friday. Okay. Okay, Zikalela, I will, as soon as the session is done, I download the session, and then what I will do is I'll convert it to a YouTube video, and then I will send it to your student emails. If you're not checking your student emails, give me any other email that I can send it to, so it can reach you. Sort of. And I've also included my cell number if you want to WhatsApp me. So maybe you can WhatsApp me your email address, and then I can send it through to that email address also if you're not checking your student emails. H Okay, I got that. Any other questions before we sign off? I want to leave you guys to go and do. Any questions? Excellent. Good luck. Please get this done. You're so close to getting it. Awesome. Great. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, just get this done. Just get it done. Zikalela, yes, you've got a question. Your hand is up. You can find it on the student portal. If you log into your student portal, you'll find there's a link there that says past papers. All right, guys. All the best.